Shalom, shalom, Israel. All right, was it yesterday? Day before yesterday, I did a video. It was talking about the sorcerers. I was backing up Big Judah. He did a video about magic and stuff, and I went into the Florentines Codex and found that Montezuma sent some of his people to use magic on the Europeans, and I ran across something and I read it, and it was speaking about these dogs that they had. But when I started speaking about the dogs, something didn't sound right. So I started researching and I looked into stuff that was happening in Spain and Portugal. And in here, I'm going to read something that talks about this dog. And it says this dog was very tall. And I've never heard nobody say a dog was tall. They always say a dog is big. But if you look at this picture, that's a big dog or a tall dog. So, and this is about werewolves. So I'm going to read this to y'all. And I want y'all to put in the comments and tell me what you think, because something don't sound right. This don't sound like a dog that walks on 4 legs. It sounds like something that walks on 2 legs. So I'm going to start reading this to y'all. All right. This is the 17th chapter in the Florentine Codex. And their food was like fasting food, very large, white, not heavy like tortillas, like maize stalk, good tasting as if maize stalk flour, a little sweet, a little honey. It was honey to eat. It was sweet to eat. I just read that so I can keep talking. Just go into the next paragraph. I don't like starting new paragraphs. And start a paragraph from the middle. I don't like doing that. Here we go. And their dogs were very large. They had ears folded over, great dragging jaws. So the jaws were long, not like that, but long snouts. They had fiery eyes. I want you to hear this about their eyes. Think about this. And you tell me a dog that you've seen like this. They had fiery eyes, blazing eyes. They had yellow eyes. What dog have you seen on this earth that has yellow eyes? Not one. But there is werewolves have yellow eyes. And if anybody watched any videos about dogmen that these people are seeing in the forest, they keep talking about these things have yellow eyes, red eyes, green, some greenish color eyes. But I'm reading something that happened in the 1400s or 1200s about these dogs these people brung here, and they saying these dogs had yellow eyes, fiery eyes, fiery yellow eyes. That means the yolk of his eye was yellow. They had thin flanks. That's they waist. Their waist was thin. I'm gonna keep going. Flanks with ribs showing, right? So right now, you say a dog was thin, and you can see his ribs. Okay. I can go with that right there. But this is where I got a problem, right? Showing they had gaunt stomachs. How do you know what this dog's stomach looked like? Unless you're gonna go under the dog like it's a car and jack it up and look. The only way you can see that his stomach is gaunt is if it's standing upward, like he's standing up, and you can see it. You can only see the side of a dog's body. You cannot see a dog's stomach unless he's standing upright. They were very tall. Okay. First it was very large. Now they're saying these dogs were tall. The only way you could describe tall is upright, the length from the floor to the top. That means these dogs walked on 2 feet. They were nervous. They went about panting, with tongues hanging. They were spotted like, this is ocelots. They were very colored, like they multicolored. And when Montezuma so heard, he was so much terrified, it was as if he fainted away. His heart saddened. His heart failed him. So you telling me Montezuma seen a dog? Now I'm quite sure they had cats, like cougars, leopards there. You know, in America there were leopards here. So I'm quite sure Montezuma seen a leopard before. So these dogs can't be that much bigger than a leopard to make this man faint. So you now think about this. If a big giant werewolf came up and was walking on two legs and was like muscular, I mean, this is a giant dog, a tall dog walking on two legs, looking at you. Wouldn't you faint? Yeah, you have a heart attack. Now I'm gonna get into this folktale stuff. Now listen, this ain't even no folktale because I know it's true. There's a lot of stuff that's going on we don't know about. Werewolves among us. What is this? Oh, my back started hurting. 5 real werewolf stories. These days, werewolves can be fun, exciting, and even a little sexy. Gotta be a European. But in the early modern Europe, told you, they were deemed a very real and dangerous threat. Werewolf accusations were not entirely uncommon in Europe. In the 16th and 17th century, werewolves were and witch hysteria sort of developed in tandem. Indeed, some people were even accused of both. Such accusations and the subsequent confessions and executions were often politically expedient, but sometimes the fear was absolutely warranted, whether the danger lurked clad in the fur of the wolf or the clothes of a man. Here, in celebration of Halloween, are 5 of the most famous werewolves of history. Beast of Gavidian. In the 18th century, the former French province of Gavidian was terrorized by the so-called La Blatte du Gavidian, the Beast of Gavidian. The beast was first spotted by a woman tending a cattle in the forest near Legone in June. Her bull scared Her bull scared it off, but not for long after it attacked and killed a 14-year-old girl. Over the ensuing months, sightings and attack mounted. Those who had seen the beast described a large wolf. Didn't I just say the word large in here? With unusual red fur, striped with black, multicolored. You hear this? And it was prophylactic. Prophylactic. Don't worry about it. I mess up words a lot. According to a 1980 study, there were 210 attacks in all, 113 of which were fatal. I just said 2 things that I just read something that happened in Europe in the Florentine Codex. The same description. They called the animal large, and he said multicolored. You know, the Most High, he brings stuff out. You just gotta listen. Okay. In 1765, King Louis XV decreed that the French state would help slay the beast. When the appointed professional wolf hunters, Charles Mark and this is my last name too, Antoine Vamosley, I can't pronounce his name, D. Nevia or whatever, and his son John Francisco failed to kill the beast. The king sent lieutenant of the hunt, Francis Antoine, instead. Antoine slayed 3 giant gray wolves, yet the attack still continued. It wasn't until the local hunter named John Castell shot a wolf on June 1767 that the attacks were declared over. Nowadays, it is thought that the beast of Gavidian wasn't a single wolf at all, but many individual wolves. When France went on the wolf-killing rampage, these wolves were slain one by one until none were left, and the attacks abated. Not that killer wolf. Not that killer wolves were unusual, according to historian Jean Marc Moracu. Some 7,600 people were killed by wolves in France between 1362 and 1918. Well, they're always getting killed by animals. Okay, the Livian werewolf. This is the next story. Werewolf confusion could be quite particular. Takes these of Catabrun, living in Swedish Lavania in the 17th century. Theseus was widely believed among the neighbors to be a werewolf who made dealings with the devil. Local authorities didn't much care. After all, Theseus was in his 80s. What harm could he do with a few tall tales? But when they brought him in for questioning on an unrelated matter in 1691, he voluntarily began divulging details of his werewolf lifestyle, although with many inconsistencies. Okay, let me read this too. It says, werewolf devouring children, Lucas Cantridge the Elder, 1512. Okay. According to his account, Theseus had given up like amphitrite 10 years prior to his appearance before the judges in 1691. Before that, he and other werewolves would change into wolves on St. Lucia's Day, Pentecost, and Midsummer Night by downing magical wolf pelts. Although he later changed his story and said they just stripped naked and turned into werewolves. They would then maraud the countryside, killing farm animals and cooking and eating them. When asked how wolves cook meat, he declared they were still human, not wolves. He might have been a crazy one. But okay, let's just keep going. His story only... Well, let me figure out what this word is. Well, I had to write it in because I only got part of the page at the top, so I had to write it in. But I see what I wrote now. His story only grew stranger. He claimed that the werewolves were the agent of God and would travel to hell to battle the devil and his witches, bringing back grain and livestock the witches had stolen. In fact, he said he had done so just 1 year earlier, contradicting his earlier claim of having announced amphitrite or whatever. When it was revealed that Theseus was not a devout Lutheran and indeed practiced a form of folk magic involving charms and blessings, the judge ordered Theseus flogged and exiled. What happened to the strange chap after that is unknown. Next story. The Wolf of Ansbach. In 1685, a wolf was terrorizing and killing humans in the town of Niesis in the Principality of Ansbach in what is now Germany. This was not unusual, but the town's chief magistrate, Michel Lech, had just died. He was a cruel and improper man, and it was said that the wolf visited Lech's residence, so it was only a small leap for people to claim the wolf who was Lech returned as a werewolf for his sins. Read this little small part. A wolf in magistrate's clothing, 1685, woodcut of the wolf on display. I got something to drink. All right. The wolf's death was not terribly eventful. The people organized and hunt and chased the wolf into a well and killed it. What they did with its body is pretty macabre, though. Whatever. They paraded it through the streets, then prepared it for display. They cut off its muzzle, dressed it in human clothes, and placed a wig on its head and a mask on its face so that it resembled lich. They then hung the body from the gibbet so that everyone might enjoy the sight. After some time, the wolf was removed from the gibbet and its corpse preserved mm, and put on permanent display at a local museum because that's not weird or creepy at all, right? The next story, the Wolf of Alerts. They got some weird names. Widely through widely thought of Spain's first ever serial killer, Manuel Blanco. Romaceta is unusual for a werewolf operating late in the mid 19th century. Actually, Robasanta was an unusual case in a few ways. Born in 1809, he he had been raised as a girl until about the age of 6. What the? At which point doctors discovered he was a male. What? Okay. He grew up married and worked as a tailor. When his wife died in 1833, he took up the traveling salesman trade, also guiding travelers around Spain and Portugal. His first known murder was Vincent Fernandez, the constable of Leon Fernandez was found dead in 1844 after attempting to collect a debt from Roma Santa. Rather than face the law, Roma Santa fled to Portugal. During this time, he murdered several people. He had hired him as a guide. He was not a cunning man. Roma Santa was noticed selling their clothes, and rumors started circulating that he was selling soap made with human fat. A compliant what? A compliant was lodged. Oh, compliant. A complaint was lodged, and Romaceta was arrested. Okay, still from 2004 Phil starring since. Okay. He confesses to 13 murders, but here is where it gets wolfish. I was wondering because this was starting to get a little weird. He said he had been cursed with lycanthropy, but upon being asked to demonstrate his transformation abilities, Romaceta declared that the curse had passed and he is no longer affected. He was actually acquitted of four of the deaths those forensic examinations found when had been committed by real wolves. However, he was found guilty of the rest. A pharmacological examination of Roma Santa by doctors determined that he had invented his curse, and he was sentenced to death. He was commuted to life imprisonment on the request of the French hypnotist, who believed Roma Santa was suffering from the delusions and petitioned to stay of his execution so that he might study the man. I guess this is the last one. In 1863, newspaper reported that Roma Santa passed away that year in prison from stomach cancer. Okay, here's the last one, I guess. I think. Yeah. Because so far, two of them is talking about some crazy people. The first one, yeah, because it pretty much did the same thing. Okay. The Werewolf of Bedburg. One of the most famous werewolf cases in is Peter Stump, a wealthy farmer accused of being a serial murderer, cannibal, and werewolf in Rhineland in 1589. In the years preceding Stump's arrest, the country town of Bedburg had been plagued with horrors. It started with dead and mutilated cattle, but bodies of townsfolk were also soon found in the fields. Initially, it was thought that a wolf or wolves were attacking, but the creatures evaded capture. Finally, in 1589, a hunting party managed to corner a wolf with hounds. When the humans approached, they saw, according to the reports, not a wolf at all. Instead, the hounds had cornered Stomp. Composite woodcut of the artist Lucas Meyer depicting the events of Stomp's torture and execution. Okay. The most damning piece of evidence was that Stomp's left hand had been lopped off. Mm. The wolf had its left forepaw cut off. Since wolf and man had the same injury, wolf and man must be one and the same. Oh, so they saying they cut the wolf's paw off, his left paw. But when the dogs cornered, after I guess chasing this wolf thing, when they cornered it, it was a man. It was this guy named Stomp. Stomp confessed, but it was a questionable confession at best. He had been subjected to torture, including the rack. He said he made a pact with the devil when he was 12. He had been given a magic belt which allowed him to turn into a wolf. He confessed to killing 14 children and 2 pregnant women. He ate their flesh and ravished their bodies. Wow. He killed his own son and had sexual relationships with his own daughter. These people are sick. He was sentenced to die in the most awful manner. He was fixed to a breaking wheel. And had flesh torn from his body with red hot pincers. His limbs were broken with blunt sides of an axe, so he might not raise from the grave. Finally, he was beheaded. His head was placed on a pole with the figures of a breaking wheel and a wolf on it as a warning to others. His daughter and mistress were also flayed, strangled, and burned. Dang. It is not known whether the crimes were truly committed by Stomp. At the time, the religion was deeply affected by the Cologne War. Stomp was a Protestant convert, and the religion he had been seized on the region. He had been seized by the Catholics in 1857. His death was to the Catholics' advantage, as his considerable wealth would fall to them. In addition, Stomp's death could have served as a strong warning to other Protestants. That's crazy. Like they vicious, man. They overkill people. They super kill people. And then they killed the girl that got raped. Like, he raping his daughter and you turn around and murder her too? That's sad. People ain't got no types of souls. They wicked. Yeah, so the last story and the first story, I definitely could deal with that. But this is a drawing of a big doggy wolf. And when you get some time, look into the Dogman stories, because some people got photos of a couple of them or whatever. Just look into them. Them things is big too. All right, my brothers and sisters. Shalom.